Hey BladeFit Army, this is Coach Nate, and today we are going to talk about Shinais and how using a Shinai is actually an excellent tool for you to use in your training methodology when you are training for European longsword. Now it seems counterintuitive, but actually we're going to get into some of the reasons why using the humble Shinai is actually an excellent way for us to train. And then what I'm going to do is demonstrate on this punching bag with this Shinai some of the exercises that we can do to reinforce the basics of swordsmanship. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, some of the reasons why. Now, every sword that we buy has a lifespan. It has a limit to its usefulness. And fetters and long swords are quite expensive, actually. And it's a sad day whenever our steel breaks. They're hard to get. Sometimes we order them and it takes, weeks or months to get into our hands. And like I said, it's just very sad when they break. When we use our long swords, our fetters, time after time after time after time, hitting a pel, we are actually shortening dramatically the lifespan of that piece of kit. And so that's why one of the reasons using a Shinai is actually an excellent way to train on a pel. And even though it's not exactly like a longsword, yes, they are lighter, yes, they don't have the same blade cross-section or profile, yes, it is wood and it is not steel. All of these things are true. But what we gain from using a pel is strength training. And anytime that you are hitting your pel, that force that you're putting into it actually vibrates up the sword and into our wrists. And if we do lots and lots of pel training, what happens is it wreaks havoc on our wrists, and the vibration goes into the little wrist bones, and we could be blowing out our wrists needlessly by hitting a hard pel with a steel. It's bad on your wrist, it's bad on your sword, and it's actually not so good on with your form either. So when we're doing pel work, we need to keep in mind that when we're fighting against an opponent in sparring or in a tournament, there's actually some give there. So when we hit a pel, we need to have some kind of mechanism that gives just a little bit. And built into the Shinai is this give. Now, the Japanese never do anything half-heartedly, and if you haven't really looked into these, they're kind of amazing. So when a Shinai breaks, it's not a big deal. Number one, you can get them very inexpensively all over the place. There's lots of online stores that will ship you one or even in a pair for a song and a dance, basically. Okay, let's be fair. There's some places where you could get good quality pair of Shinai for under $60 American. That's not, throwaway money, but it also doesn't break the bank either. And you get a pair. What you get is, you have these separated wood panels that are bound together. You have this cool line that when you are striking, it helps you to visualize your blade alignment, which is important. So it has that as an excellent way to train. It comes with a nice leather grip, and it comes with a nice leather tip. And we'll talk about using these in sparring on a different video. Today we're just talking about training. And so when we hit or thrust, there does have a little bit of give in these. They're designed for that. They're designed to hit lighter than the energy you're putting onto. Now, for today, instead of a pel, I'm using a punching bag. I have pels, I have lots of different pels, but I just wanted to use this setup as an example. Maybe some of you are into kickboxing or MMA or classic boxing, and maybe you have one of these hanging around. What you do not want to do is scar it up with your steel. You want to use something that's going to be nice to your bag, so your bag will last a long time. And the Shinai is one of those things, especially if you're hitting with the rubber. But really, this is a nice, smooth wood. And so when I hit my bag, it makes a lovely noise. It reduces the strain on my wrist because it's a nice bag. The energy is dispersed around it. It's dispersed in the sword, and very little of it gets into my wrists. So if you're trying to develop power, hitting a PEL, this combination works very, very well. Or if you're designing a PEL, make sure it's something that also dissipates some of the energy that you're transferring out into it. Okay, so that's just a couple of reasons why a Shinai works really nice. You can train a long time. They're consumable if they break. You can get them in 3 days or less, a replacement. And yeah, so that's the reasons why. Now let's get into some of the things that we can do using this PEL. So it's very important that we train how we want to fight. And balance is key, right? So I get in a good stance, a good balancing position. Now it's important when we are generating power, notice how my hand starts on the one side. I'm right-handed, so it starts on the right side, and I'm cutting across my body, and my hand is ending up on the left side of my body. Now there's a couple things. It's my son on the other side of the glass. Hey, buddy. Now there's some things that I want to cross my body with the sword. I want to stay balanced as I do this. I want to generate power. The power comes from the hips. So this I will show you. When I don't necessarily have to stand like this to learn how to generate power from my hips, right? So when you step, it certainly forces you to turn your hips, but we're gonna do this without stepping. I'm gonna have a nice like neutral stance like this, right? Back straight, knees bent. I'm gonna have my sword here, and as I cross my body, notice what my hips are doing. I'm moving this hip like this, right? My right hip is moving as if my foot is going out, but I'm just turning my hip. And that action of turning my hip is generating power into my shoulder, right? And that shoulder is helping to accelerate the Shinai to this side of my body. And the same in the other direction. If I want to strike here, right? My hand starts on the left, it's crossing my body, now it's on my right side, and my hip, my left hip, is flexing out. Now I could do this against this dummy, right? I get a good position here. Now I'm not just hitting it on the right side like this. I'm still crossing my body and creating force on the dummy like this. I'm flexing my hip out as I strike. Hand starts on the right side and it ends on the left side. My sword is crossed over and I have struck the target with this part of the sword, which is very important. This is the optimal cutting position of the sword, right? So what I'm doing is I'm learning the transfer. I'm learning how to transfer the power from the ground through my body to the sword tip, and I'm also practicing important. What am I trying to say? Important positioning of my sword for optimal offense and defense, right? I'm going to cross my body. The sword is my defense and my offense. So I'm flexing my hip as I strike. Now, why do I do this with the sword? Well, you need lots of room to do this kind of thing. If you have limited space, doing this will help you. You can do this inside your bedroom, for example, and you're still developing that muscle motion. And so obviously I'm not going to be this close to my opponent when I'm sword fighting. I want to be ideally out here or even further out, right? And I'm going to step in as I strike. Well, as I step, that's the distance management, right? But that's a different drill. What I'm trying to focus on in this drill is how to generate the power from my hip into my shoulder, out my hands, and use the sword and put it in a position where it needs to be for optimal offense and defense. Okay? And so the Shinai is a key component into this. Now, also so that's one thing that I can do. On left side, right? And maybe for me, cutting from my weak side, I don't do that as much, and this is a great way to train up those muscles. Okay, on my left side, right? I'm flexing as I go, right? Good. So, I don't want this video to take too long. All right, so that's that exercise. I'm going to show you one more that involves some footwork. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm right-handed. I'm going to start in an exaggerated squat position, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squat and step and strike. Now, this is a confined space. This isn't for distance management, right? I realize this is too close for sparring. But if I'm using this, if I understand that, if I could visualize where the actual target is, and this is just the vehicle of resistance. It takes a little bit more imagination, but it's important that you understand that that's what's happening here. Okay? Because we don't want to be sparring this close. That's bad. But if I don't have enough room, which is most of us, right? It rains here like 9 months out of the year. If I do it the way that I'm doing it, I don't need as much space. I can do this in my bedroom if I want to. Okay, so I'm like this. I'm going to scoot back just a little bit, and I'm going to pop up when I squat, and I'm going to throw this foot out, and then I'm going to cross my body with my Shinai, the same as before. Okay, so here I go, like this. Spring, spring. Spring. Now you shouldn't bounce every time because then you get an artificial bounce when you spar. It's not what you want. Okay, so I'm going to slow this down. Here I am. Focus. I'm in Bum Tag. Spring. Again. Spring. There we go. Okay. I can do the same on the other side. So let's do that. Okay. A little bit more difficult. Like this. I'm going to spring out. I'm going to cut as I spring out. Right, like that. Reset. Remember, the exercise is to spring out with your foot. Right, and I am applying that pressure. Right, one more, so you can see. Good. Cool. All right, guys, so I'm going to show some other exercises that we could use to help us train, strength train with our swords and our footwork using a Shinai. So look forward to that in the future. I'm Coach Nate, BladeFit Academy. You guys rock. Have an awesome day. Always remember to slay your demons. And I'll catch you on the next video. Have a great day.